So the topic for today is estrogen detoxification, and specifically through dry urine testing. So how many of us do hormone testing? Okay, so how many of us do urine testing? Okay, and how many of us do dry urine testing? Okay, so serum testing is most common, and it's the gold standard. It's easy to do. A lot of times it'll be covered by insurance. The downside of serum testing is you don't find out how the body processes the hormones. So with estrogen, we can look at the estrogen metabolites, and that can give us an idea of how well the body's processing it, and it tells us about risk for breast cancer and other estrogen-related cancers and other estrogen-related issues like PCOS, etc. But if you do urine testing, typically a lot of people prior to dry urine testing do a 24-hour urine test. So you have to carry around this bottle of urine with you, or the patient does, all day long. You have to keep it in the fridge, and so it's really a pain. And so with the dry urine testing, you just have to use these little pieces of filter paper, and you can get samples at different times during the day. So it's a lot more convenient. The patients can mail it in. It's a reasonable cost, so it's a great alternative to 24-hour urine testing. So we're very happy that our guest speaker tonight is Dr. Carrie Jones, and she's the Chief Medical Officer of Dutch Labs, and she has lots of clinical experience as well, and so she can help answer a lot of questions we have about helping manage our patients with their hormones, and specifically with Dutch testing. And she flew all the way down from Portland for this meeting. So thank you so much, Dr. Jones.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for having me. So yes, I'm the medical director for Dutch, which is an acronym. It stands for Dry Urine Test for Comprehensive Hormones. We are not a Dutch heritage testing company, which oddly enough, of course, we get asked all the time with all of the genomics, 23andMe, things like that. People are like, well, I'm not Dutch. It is an acronym. So I'm going to go over just a couple slides explaining what Dutch has to offer. There's a number of handouts out there, including sample reports, the special that we're having if you sign up to be a new provider. We even have a special if you are a current provider. And then we have treatment guides out there. So you'll see the Metagenics name on the treatment guide when you're going through Dutch reports on what product may help you the most when you're working. Now, what I want to get into, the majority of it, is this right here, phase 1, 2, 2.5, and 3 detoxification of estrogen, because it relates to men and women kind of just the same. We talk about estrogen detox in women all the time because, of course, breast cancer is our biggest concern, but men absolutely have problems with estrogen. We often think over aromatization, which may be true, but we forget that men have to detox their estrogen out through their liver, through their kidney and bile, and out through their colon, just as much as women do. And so by the end of this, I'm hoping, again, I'm a big fan of Dutch, but even if you don't use Dutch, I want you to have a really clear understanding of the phases of estrogen detox so that you can take it back to your practice tomorrow, being Friday, and immediately start implementing. So, what does Dutch do? So this is sort of our play on our logo, because it's dry urine, we offer a huge amount of hormones that you maybe can't get out of serum or saliva. Dr. Ben is correct with serum. A lot of you doing serum, you'll get estradiol, you'll get your total and free testosterone, you'll get progesterone. But the bonus to urine is you get to find out where is it going. What are the downstream metabolites? Yes, you make estradiol. Is it going down the right pathway? Yes, you make testosterone, but is it going down the 5-alpha pathway, which is what causes the acne, the hirsutism, the male pattern baldness, some of the prostate issues? And that's what's really nice about Dutch, is that we give you all this information. So these are two of our main tests, just so if you've never seen a Dutch test before. We have what's called the Dutch Complete, which is an all dry urine test, and then we have a combination which is Dutch Plus, and the combination is dried urine coupled with salivary cotton swabs. That was like,
Is that the phone in the room?
I think it's in somebody's purse, but there's nobody there. Sorry. So you have options. So that you have all urine, which covers all of your main hormones you're looking for, all your pathways, cortisol. We do things like melatonin, we do some organic acids, and then on top of that we can add in the cortisol awakening response. Now, other than estrogen detoxification, the cortisol awakening response is my second favorite thing to talk about because it's so important that we get that right for so many things. Energy, mood, blood sugar, autoimmune risk. And so by having the combination of saliva, cotton swabs with the dry urine, you just get a much bigger picture. Now, for those of you who have cycling women that are struggling and you want to see the all-month-long look, we have what's called a Dutch cycle mapping, in appropriate sense. So they will collect one dry urine strip every morning. They just urinate it on like a pregnancy test. And they'll do it through their whole cycle, and then we graph it out for them. So you can see the rise and fall of estrogen, the rise and fall of progesterone, or not, right? And then we can really pinpoint what's going on through their cycles. So what does Dutch test? We often get asked this. We have a little comparison chart. So for those of you who are running serum or saliva, this is usually, when it comes to the male and female hormones, what you're looking at. And in addition, what I don't have in serum is like SHBG, sex hormone binding globulin, but you can't get that in urine or saliva, so I left it off the list. But with Dutch, we can give you an immense amount of information because it is the urine testing. So you get the hormones, and then on top of it, you get where does it go? What are the metabolites doing? We're not going to talk about it in this lecture. However, with Dutch, we also give you things like cortisone. So you may be running cortisol tests and you'll see the free cortisol is low and you think to yourself, wow, they don't make any free cortisol. But in actuality, they may be deactivating to cortisone. So it's not a production problem, it's a deactivation problem. And you address it differently. Getting the HPA axis to work is one thing, getting them to stop deactivating is another thing. Or they could be both. They may not be producing and then they may be deactivating. We do run some organic acids. We run some markers for B6, B12, glutathione. We also run some markers for neurotransmitters, and we do run the DNA damage marker called 8-OHDG, 8-hydroxy-2-deoxyguanosine. So those of you who work with cancer are concerned about metal exposure, chemical exposure, that 8-OHDG increases as DNA damage goes up as well. And so it can be, and it's in a lot of research specifically with cancer. It's a really good marker because it's very modifiable, and you can lower it through diet, lifestyle, antioxidants, supplements, things like that. We do look at melatonin production through the night. And then, like I said, we have the all-month-long cycle mapping. So you can get all of this by running the Dutch test. Some of you may think, well, you know, urine testing has been around for a very long time, of course. Lots of research on urine testing. What about dried urine testing? More research is coming out. This is the first research paper that was published that compares dried urine testing to serum, specifically for estradiol and progesterone. And they found that it was a really good surrogate. They found a good correlation. So you can run dry urine for those of you who are familiar with maybe doing serum and you're a little hesitant. Now, what you don't want to use urine for are things that are like thyroid. Like that thyroid should always be done in the serum, but you can run your estradiol, your estrone, your free testosterone, your DHEAS. You can run all that in the urine. Okay, so now that I've got the whole Dutch part out of the way in 7 minutes, let's make you detoxification experts, because this is my absolute favorite topic, and I feel like practitioners get it wrong a lot, and I want to make sure you guys get it super right so that you know exactly how to work with your patient tomorrow morning. So we're going to set the scene. Male or female, it doesn't matter. You make or take an estrogen, you use the estrogen, you're done with that estrogen. Now, where does that estrogen go, right? You have to clear it out of your system. So with estrogen detox, we're going to look at 2 ways. First of all, we're going to look through the liver. So we have your phase 1 detoxification. That's your 2, your 4, and your 16 hydroxy, or OH. Then it goes to phase 2, where it becomes a methoxy. using COMT, then phase 2.5. Now phase 2.5 is more colloquial. It's like some people call it 2.5 because it's the action of getting from in the cell, transported out of the cell, and put into the kidney or bile. So it just has a lot to do with transportation across the cell membrane. And then the actual phase 3 is once you are packaged up and in the GI tract, now you are going out for glucuronidation, and what can mess you up is beta-glucuronidase, which we're going to talk about. Now, Dutch testing does not look at phase 3. This is a stool test. But I want you to know it because it's the most important part. You're going to start with this. I'm going to teach it to you 1, 2, 3. You're going to treat it 3, 2, 1. So it's really important I give you this information. So let's start with the liver. We'll start with phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. Why do you care? Why do you care about estrogen metabolism? Right? For those of you who are running maybe serum or saliva, and you're getting an estradiol in serum or saliva, and you're like, this is good enough, I can treat off of this. Well, remember, estrogen dominance may be due to production from aromatization, right? Or it may be due to slow detoxification. And you're trying to mitigate cancer risk, primarily for women, but also for men. Very, very important. This is my stick figure chart. And if you've ever heard me lecture before, I will say this is why I'm a doctor and not a graphic designer. This is as good as it gets. So this is my metabolism chart expanded. And I keep it really simple so that you guys can understand. If it's a smiley face, it's good. If it's green, it's good. If it's a frowny face, it's bad. If it's red, it's bad. And if it's blue, or it kind of has this like smirky look, it's like, could go either way. So here's how it works. You have your E1 and your E2, your estrone and your estradiol. When it comes through, it goes through phase 1 detoxification. You either use your CYP3A4 to make 16, your 1B1 to make 4, or your 1A1 to make 2. And we're gonna break this down. Don't worry, don't feel like you have to like learn this in the next 45 minutes. There will be no quiz, I promise. But if you want my slides, I can absolutely get you my slides so you have this. When you make these, they have options. This is just phase 1. 16 can become estriol. Once you're estriol, you're excreted. It's a green arrow, smiley face. The 4 can go 2 different pathways. It can go down through COMT, become a methoxy, get excreted, and that's a smiley face. Or it can go down what I call the naughty pathway, which is red, where you form what's called a quinone. These cause increased risk for DNA damage, therefore mutation. Frowny face, you don't want to go down this red pathway. Now thankfully your body is smart. You have 2 built-in stop gaps to stop this pathway. You have quinone reductase. For those of you who are into genomics, this is NQ01. Why it wasn't QR, I'm not in charge. If I was in charge, I'd make it easy. But NQ01 is quinone reductase, and then you have your glutathione sulfur transferase, so glutathione support. These are green arrows that will send it back so that it can get methylated. Lastly, we have our 2. Your 2 can go 2 different ways. It can become a stable adduct, which we'll talk about, which gets the like man face, or it can go through methylation and get excreted. Now this is just phase 1 and 2, and when I say excreted, we're talking through the colon. But we'll go into this. Yes?
Is there a way that the 16 can be problematic?
Yes, absolutely. So 16 is, it's proliferative. Good for bones, bad for breasts, bad for the lining of the uterus. Meaning, I have definitely had women with normal estradiol and estrone, heavy periods, full tender breasts at PMS, feel miserable. Their 16 is really, really high. So their issue is because of the 16 being more very estrogenic with the estrogen receptor, as opposed to the fact that it's an estradiol problem. But the 16 can be good for bone health. So you don't want it 0, but you don't want it to the point where she has clots and menorrhagia and tender breasts. Yeah. Now, speaking of 16, those of you who are into DNA, CYP3A4 actually facilitates a lot of things, right? Most all medications and chemicals come through 3A4. So if you have an upregulated 3A4, you may see your 16 high, but you're probably working to clear all that crap you just came in contact with. So be very careful if you read about like, oh, I can slow this down. I'll find ways to slow this down. You will slow down the rest of your detox. So just be careful. Yes?
What determines the conversion of the estrogen and estradiol into either of these metabolites? Do you have, is it just a genetics?
Yes, it is just genetics. And primarily that's your base is genetics, but you can speed or slow these down, speed them up or slow them down, or redirect them based on certain supplements and diet, which we'll talk about. Yeah, absolutely. But you can be a, you can have a SNP in 1A1, which sped up. So now you favor this pathway no matter what because you have that SNP. Same like you can have a 1B1 SNP. It's sped up, so you're going to always favor the 4. Now we can do things to mitigate that, but if you've got the SNP, we're going to always be working to mitigate that.
And the SNP's always going to speed things up, is not going to slow them down?
Correct. We're trying to slow them down. CYP SNPs are sped up, which is different than COMT. That can be fast or slow. Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about your key metabolites, just so you have an idea of what I'm talking about. We're going to talk about the 2 and the 4 because 16 is very important, but I want you to understand why the 2 pathways, the pathway we want to go down, it's the less carcinogenic pathway. Sometimes people will call it the healthy pathway, the preferred pathway. It's not healthy per se, but if you can only get to this point, it's not healthy. It's when it moves on to a methoxy that it's healthy. So let me explain why. So your 2OH, you make 2OH. Now remember, anything that's an OH is a reactive oxygen species. These are ROSs. And this can go into a quinone or semi-quinone state. Those bind the DNA and can cause damage. So they're not healthy, but we can make them healthier. It can bind to the estrogen receptor, but it binds with less affinity and not as tightly. So that's a pro, like we prefer that. And it forms what's called a stable adduct. And I will explain that in just a second. Stable, anything stable, we like that, right? Unstable is when we get nervous. So this forms stable adducts with DNA. But what we want is we want it to convert into a methoxy. Why? Because methoxy is considered anti-proliferative. This is where it's healthy. So when you talk about your 2 pathway with patients or with each other, and you're like, oh, the healthy pathway, the 2 pathway, it's only healthy if your COMT is working. It's only healthy if you can methylate it and get it to here. It's got anti-aromatase activity. It helps with apoptosis induction. And they don't think, most research doesn't think it can bind to the estrogen receptor. So this is where you're trying to get to, is this methoxy. What you don't want to do, there we go, is get to the 4. Now you will always make some 4. You don't have a choice. It's never 0. You will your CYP1B1 is in you. It's upregulated to a degree. It's just like Goldilocks. You want it to be like just right. Why is this a problem? Because it's much more carcinogenic. This one is the one that forms something called unstable or depurinating adducts, which I'll show you in a second. They bind to the receptor really tightly. They're not going to let go. They're going to bind the receptor, do the things, and it's probably going to be bad. And we don't want that. Estradiol, if you are estrogen dominant or taking estradiol and you favor this pathway, it will make you favor it even more. It will increase it even more. So when people go on HRT, when they go on estradiol, and they already favor this pathway and don't know it, their estradiol in blood or saliva might be low, and they're super symptomatic, hot flashes, night sweats, vaginal dryness, everything. But if they favor the 1B1 pathway, the estradiol they're taking, if it's too much, could actually push it even faster. And now you have the risk for cancer, for unstable adducts, which is where the concern is. Is estrogen the problem? No, it's the unstable adducts that are the problem. These are what the problem is. These are what damage DNA. So how do these metabolites cause cancer? Like I said, it's these adducts. So what happens is, when DNA binds, you get what's called an apurinic site. So when we go back to my handy-dandy little metabolism expanded, it's right here in the big red arrow. So you can see it's pretty far along the red pathway, and it's like one step away from a frowny face. And y'all don't want the frowny face, right? That's the goal, no frowny So let me explain the difference. A stable addict is like a good, obedient child. You tell your child, I want you to sit right there. I have to go to the bathroom, grab my phone, grab my purse, and come back, and don't you move. And an obedient child is like, okay. And they don't move until told. So a stable addict is when you screw up the DNA, but it stays in the DNA, and it waits for your base excision repair to come through and be like, oh, you're wrong, I need to fix you. And then it gets fixed. The DNA gets fixed. An unstable addict or depurinating addict is the opposite. It's an unruly child who doesn't listen and gets holes everywhere. So depurinating is where it breaks off the purine group, and now you have a hole in your DNA. So now your base excision repair mechanism, right, your DNA fixing mechanism, has to fix all the holes in your DNA. 1 or 2 holes is not a big deal. 1 or 2 million holes, big deal. And it becomes like a factory that's trying to create a normal functioning widget, but the widgets are coming too fast, and like all of a sudden like the paint color's wrong and the screws aren't tight, and at this point they're just skipping screws and nails because they don't know what to do, and it becomes mutated. And that's what happens with your DNA. You get these DNA mutations, and that's what increases the risk for cancer when it's unstable more over stable. Now, in a stable addict, your DNA repair system can still screw up. It can still come across this and go, ooh, you're bad, let me fix you. Oh man, I fixed you wrong. Oops, sorry about that. So this can still cause cancer. But it's this one that's more likely to, because the hole is already there and the body freaks out. The DNA doesn't want a hole in it, or holes for that matter. This is a breast cancer estrogen DNA addict graph. So the two big researchers in breast cancer when it comes to things like this are Dr. Cavalieri, who is retired, and Dr. Eleanor Rogan, who is continuing to research. And she, for those of you who are into breast cancer or follow any of this research, Dr. Rogan is ridiculously intelligent. She's about yay big. She has all this gray, like puffy hair on her head. She's the cutest thing in the whole world. She's like grandma, and then she opens her mouth, and all of this comes out. She's the nicest person. But these are 40 women, 40 healthy women, 40 women at high risk for breast cancer, and 40 women with active breast cancer. And what they did is they looked to see your addicts. Now, we're human, we always have cancer in us, we will always have addicts, yeah.
Dr. Jones, how were they considered, high risk?
They actually did it based off the addicts compared to women who actually had a diagnosis of cancer.
Okay.
Yeah, so these women actually had a breast cancer biopsy and had been diagnosed cancer.
Oh, yeah, that one's clear. I was just wondering.
Yeah. So you will always have addicts in you. You're hoping your system will go through and fix it, right? So here are the addicts for them. Here are women they consider high risk, and these are women actually who have breast cancer. And there's not much difference between the two of them. Now this one has a little more fill-in, and some things are a little higher, but it's not much different between those who have high risk and cancer, but there's a big difference between no cancer and cancer, but when it comes to these addict formation. We don't want our DNA to have holes in it. So when we talk about detoxification of estrogen, this is my analogy. It's the same analogy I've been using for years and years and years. You're welcome to use it as well. It's a clawfoot bathtub. And it has to be clawfoot because I'm extra and I want a clawfoot bathtub. I don't want a normal bathtub. So phase 1 is the water filling up your tub. Is it 2 water? Is it 4 water? Is it 16 water? What water is coming in fast? What water is coming in slow? Phase 2 is your drain. Can you get it out of the bathtub? Can you methylate it? Can you become a methoxy? Phase 3 is the sewer line out of your house. Now that you've made it, and now that you've neutralized it, can you actually literally get it out? And if you can't, what's going to happen? What happens in your sewer line if you keep just shoving stuff down there? You'll back up, right? Your toilet will back up, your tub will back up, your sink will back up, and it's nasty. It's the same in your body. So I teach it as 1, 2, 2.5, which we'll talk about, and 3, but you have to address it as 3, 2, 1. Because if you don't unplug your sewer line and then you don't open your drain, it doesn't matter what you do to your water, it will still overflow. You can give all the phase 1 support in the world, which is DIM, which we'll talk about, but you gotta fix these first. So always go, that's why even though we don't do stool testing at Dutch, we're not a microbiome company, it's still really important for us to talk about it because you have to look here. And all of you are functional practitioners. I know you're all looking at the gut. I'm just reminding you. So 3, 2, 1. But I teach it 1 and 2. That's how we're going to learn it. Okay. How do you evaluate? Just like I said, yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
So you just mentioned phase 3,
Yes.
which is you mentioned stool testing.
Yes.
I recently heard a prominent functional medicine practitioner say that the beta-glucuronidase on stool testing is not an accurate test. Is that correct?
Just based on, I guess, experience, I feel like I would disagree because I find routinely, what'd you say?
I agree with you.
With me or him? Me?
You with you.
Yeah, then when women have high levels of estrone, estradiol, or all these symptoms, and we do stool testing, usually their microbiome's a mess, and often their beta-glucuronidase is high. Yeah, so from a, I guess, anecdotal, it seems to really match up. Yeah, and you would agree? Yeah. But I don't know why, I've heard that before as well, that it's not that reliable, and I don't know why. I feel like it matches up. And I feel like they get better when we treat them, obviously, with the gut, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. But we will totally talk about beta-glucuronidase. So phase 1 and 2, let's start with phase 1. So those of you who have done the Dutch test before, we are actually in the process of updating our results. We're going to make them more user-friendly. We're going to split them out so it's easier to understand. These are the new results that will probably roll out in the next couple of months. So what happens in the results is we have estrone and estradiol at the top, and of course they can convert back and forth to each other. And then we have your 2, your 4, and your 16. We give you your actual numbers, so your literal numbers, and then we tell you of all the estrogen coming in there, we split out the percentage for you. What percent is 16, what percent is 2, and what percent is 4. Because you need to know the actual literal numbers, and then you need to know, like, wow, the majority of water coming in your bathtub is, for example, like in this one, there's a lot of 16 coming in for the amount of estrogen coming through. So we give you both, absolute numbers and a percentage number. When we look at phase 1 detoxification, you're looking at your CYPs. 1B1, 3A4, 1A1. What affects your CYPs? What speeds them up? Well, first of all of your CYPs are heme dependent. How many of your patients have an iron issue? They're low iron, actually outright iron anemic. So they're iron. So even though your question was, can the CYPs be slowed down? When you have a SNP, they speed up. But you can have a slow CYP if you're iron anemic. You can in that regard. But what else speeds them up? Environmental toxicants, smoking, charred meats, grapefruit juice. How many times have you heard don't take your medication with grapefruit juice? Speeds up detoxification of the medication. So let's look at this example, male or female. They have estrogen dominant symptoms. Let's say she's female, PMS, breast tenderness, heavy periods, what have you. When we look at this, the 2 dial, so let me back up. The dials are read like a gas gauge. In between the star are the normal ranges. So low range, upper range. This purple box is the menopausal range. On women, regardless of age, we will give you this range, which is the luteal range, and this range, which is the menopausal range. And the reason we give you that on every woman, regardless of her age, is so that you know where she falls, regardless of her age. So if she's 22 years old and down here, you're like, wow, girl, you're menopausal levels. But if she's 52 years old and right here, she's in menopausal levels. And as practitioners, as a lab, we don't know where you want your patient to be. There are practitioners that want their menopausal women in the luteal range. That's up to you, not up to us. But you need to have both ranges to see. So in this example, this is your 2. This is the ideal path we want to go, which is in range. But look, the 4 is much higher. It's in the red. So like, oh, there it is. I have a frowny face. This frowny face was over here. Sorry, some of the formatting that got moved. And then the 16 is right at the star. So between this and this person is struggling and going down the wrong pathways, I think, too much with detoxification. This is 2 weeks.
What are the stars?
Oh, sorry, upper and lower limit. So lower and upper. Yeah, upper and lower limit of a luteal phase female. Not follicular, not pre-ovulatory. Yeah, luteal.
Now, why is estriol down at the bottom here next to 16?
Because because 16 becomes estriol. So estriol's other word is 16-OH-E2.
Really?
Yeah. But everyone calls it estriol. But its chemical name is just one off from this.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
In this example, this person was given DIM, diethylmethane, for 2 weeks. And you can see that they go from in the red, and almost in the red at the star, to down in the green and down in the green. In just 2 weeks, diethylmethane. So it really affects phase 1. So let's talk about diethylmethane and indole-free carbonyl, I3C, when it comes to phase 1. Now, diethylmethane and I3C are only phase 1. Like 99% phase 1. They have a teeny tiny amount of phase 2. They will teeny tiny amount increase NRF2. Are you guys familiar with NRF2, NRF2? NRF2 increases phase 2 enzymes. So anything that's a NRF2 upregulator speeds up phase 2. Teeny tiny amount, but really what it does, 99%, is phase 1. Here's the thing I get asked all the time. Which do you like? Indole-free carbonyl, I3C, or DIM? I like DIM, and here's why. When you eat the brassica family, broccoli, kale, cauliflower, mustard greens, what have you, it's indole-free carbonyl that's in there. Then it has to hit the stomach acid and break apart. How many of your patients have good stomach acid to break that apart? Not many, right? When I3C breaks apart, it becomes multiple metabolites, one of which is DIM. And so, why not just give DIM? You don't need stomach acid, and that's what you're going after anyway, so I say just give DIM. Now, some people like combinations. They want what the other metabolites that indole-free carbonyl has, but DIM is what we're going after in this example. What does it do? DIM shifts your detoxification down to the 2 pathway. It upregulates 1A1. It pushes the 2. That's what it does. It pushes the 2 pathway. And then I have here again, it increases NRF2 like a little bit. But predominantly it's a phase 1 mover, CYP. That's what it does. The dosage for DIM, this is just general dosing. Obviously some of you go below and some of you go above. 100 to 300 is pretty standard for DIM. I've seen 400, I've seen 50, depending on the product. Totally fine. Just remember, it's going to upregulate 1A1. When you upregulate that, you get the 2 pathway. It's not the healthy pathway unless you can get through your drain and out your sewer line. So before you give DIM, make sure your 2 and your 3 are open. Otherwise, you're just going to keep making reactive oxygen species. So the goal is methoxy. And remember, 1A1 is not just for estrogen. These CYP, every single gene in your body doesn't just do like one thing. Your CYP1A1 will also upregulate other things like polyaromatic hydrocarbons. So if you're giving somebody loads of DIM, if they have a lot of PAH exposure, you're going to increase the PAH adduct formation. Just like you can increase estrogen adduct formation. So just make sure that phase 2 and the phase 3 are open and you're covered. So then I get asked all the time, well, I don't believe in supplements. I'm just going to eat broccoli and I'll be fine, right? You get this? So I did the research because I was like, yeah, cool. I mean, I'm all about lifestyle changes, dietary changes. Eat those foods 100%. I eat those foods pretty much every day. So this research said you would have to eat upwards of 600 grams a day and sustain it for several years to achieve an anti-cancer benefit. So I did the math for you, so if you can't do the math. 600 grams a day is about 2.5 cups a day of this food for several years. Now I know a lot of you were like, I totally eat 2.5 cups of that a day. I believe you 100%. But just, sustained for several years just to get the anti-cancer effect, when you can just take DIM. And in 2 weeks, I can read your numbers. So if you've got a high-risk woman, I'm not going to say to her, hey, I need you to eat 2.5 cups a day for several years, and then we'll get the effect. I'm going to have her do this and take DIM, because I want to move numbers pretty quickly. But yes, you can eat it, just tell your patient that. So what else helps reduce risks and symptoms. So remember we talked about this naughty pathway, this quinone pathway, that 4 can break off and go that way. So we have 2 stopgaps. We have quinone reductase and glutathione sulfotransferase. So let's upregulate those, right? If you're a 4 and you're like going this way, we want to stop you, and these 2 things will stop you. So how do we stop it? Well, of course, N-acetylcysteine is a big one. N-acetylcysteine makes glutathione, right? Our big antioxidant in our body. So I call it phase 1 and 2-ish because it like pushes it back here to the beginning so that it can go down phase 2. That's what it does. So it also, of course, let me go back here. Oh, here. And so NAC itself, it inhibits addict formation by 60% by reacting with the quinone itself. So it's like a superhero that tackles the quinone and won't let it like keep going to cancer, to keep going to DNA damage, and gets rid of it. It excretes it. And of course, like I said, it makes glutathione. Yeah.
So NAC is better than giving liposomal glutathione?
That's the debate. So that's the debate. A lot of the research is looking at NAC. Dr. Rogan's research is looking at NAC. I asked her, why aren't you looking at glutathione when you're looking at all these addicts? She's like, didn't occur to me. I didn't know about glutathione. Like as a supplement. She's like, I don't, I'm like, liposomal glutathione. She's like, I don't know liposomal glutathione. Like, I'm a researcher. We've been using NAC.
Well, NAC converts to glutathione pretty regularly, pretty easily, and it's a lot cheaper.
It can, yeah.
A lot cheaper.
Yeah, and it helps like congested people, phlegmy people. So it's like a twofer.
It's probably a tenor.
It's probably a tenor, right? It's probably a tenor.
NAC does.
Yes, absolutely. And you don't need much. I know. So when I asked Dr. Rogan in her studies, I believe she said the dose was like 150 to 300 milligrams.
What?
And the dose we give people, right, is 600 to 1200.
Right.
So she was like, oh yeah, it's not much. Not as much as you guys are using. So NAC can be good, but you can still give glutathione. Why can you give glutathione? Because it helps with glutathione sulfotransferase, which still will bind and still will get it out. Glutathione will still complex and get it out. So you can do. So NAC is that one. This, I think, is hilarious. This is a study that was done where they looked at 4. So they were looking at 4 and giving N-acetylcysteine, and it was just dropped in a petri dish. And so it was 1-to-1. It was none, a 1-to-1 ratio or a half-to-1 ratio. So this is after 30 days. This is no N-acetylcysteine. And this, and this is lots of N-acetylcysteine. And this is how much addict. So addict, there's adenine, guanine. These are your addict formation. So on lots of N-acetylcysteine, look, your addicts here are super, super low. So when people ask me, well, what's lots? It was in a petri dish. They literally dropped it on it. So there's no milligram dosage. But still, just the visual, I was like, okay, I'm sold. Great. Now, what about sulforaphane? How many of you are using sulforaphane in your practice or recommending broccoli sprouts to people? Sulforaphane is probably by far one of my top favorite supplements ever as a practitioner. I take it regularly. So, sulforaphane is also in your brassica family, highest in your broccoli sprouts. If you are a green thumb person, grow broccoli sprouts. Eat them. Put them in your smoothies, on your salads, in your soups. Fantastic. If you are like me, and you cannot grow things, not even cactus, then you take it as a supplement. But here's the deal. So when you have broccoli sprouts and you chew them up or chop them up, what happens is it has this thing called glucoraphanin in it. Glucoraphanin mixes with myrosinase, which is an enzyme, an ACE, right? It's a cleaver, and that forms sulforaphane. So the act of chewing or chopping is what you need to get this to be active. Or if you take a supplement, make sure that it has glucoraphanin and myrosinase in it, and they can guarantee the sulforaphane outcome. What I will sometimes see is that supplement companies will give just sulforaphane, they'll give just glucoraphanin because you do have gut microbiome that can convert into sulforaphane, unless you have an unhealthy microbiome. Then research says the rate of conversion is extremely variable by person. So just keep that in mind. Yes, your gut can do it, but if your gut is terrible, probably not well. So, and then cauliflower and mustard sprouts are not that far behind it, but broccoli sprouts are where it's at. What does it do? It reacts with glutathione through GST. It activates NRF2 really powerfully. These upregulate your phase 2 enzymes, and it activates quinone reductase. So this is like super potent. We thought glutathione was potent. This is potent. It's good stuff. Yes?
So is it the same situation as with the DIM where you have to eat copious amounts of it in order to get the benefit?
No, it's a great question. You don't have to eat copious amounts of it. It's not that much. It's only like a couple tablespoons. Yeah, it's not like broccoli for DIM. Yeah, good question. I should put that in here to show people what the requirement is. Yes?
Does it have to be the broccoli sprouts? There's a big difference between the broccoli sprouts and just broccoli.
Correct. It happens for the DIM, broccoli's good enough. For this, sprouts. It's the sprouts that does it. And you can buy broccoli sprouts. They have, like a lot of natural food stores have just broccoli sprouts. Just make sure they're organic, right? Resveratrol. How many of you use resveratrol in your practice? Yeah, absolutely. So resveratrol, of course, Cabernet Franc is supposedly the highest of wine, the wine with the most resveratrol in it. And it does increase quinone reductase. Be aware though, of course, Cabernet Franc is still an alcohol. It will still affect your detoxification. So what does this do? This resveratrol will also take the 4-OH that's going down the naughty pathway and reverse it to the beginning, so that it can become a methoxy, which is what we want. It also induces NRF2. So just like sulforaphane, increases those phase 2 enzymes. Super important. The hard part is bioavailability is tough, right? It's hard to absorb resveratrol. So that's where it gets a little sticky. That's where if somebody says, I want the best NRF2 upregulator, I would pick broccoli sprouts over this, just because it's hard to absorb. And in fact, I have a little thing here. How much to increase NRF2? Sulforaphane needs next to nothing, whereas resveratrol needs a lot. It works, for sure. You just need a lot of it. Just be aware of that in your dose. Now, people will say to me, my patient has cancer. Can I give him both? Yeah, absolutely. Every little bit counts, for sure. Maybe not encourage Cabernet Franc drinking, but you can do the supplement, for sure. And then you'll see some other things that increase NRF2. Lutein, right? Look, tamoxifen, interestingly. Miltithisol, curcumin. Doesn't curcumin just fix like everything? Curcumin, quercetin, andrographis. So, all the citations for that. Okay, now we're going to move on to phase 2. Now we're in your drain. So when you go from a hydroxy to a methoxy, that's the act of getting methylated. Now everyone says, oh, MTHFR. I have MTHFR, the dreaded disease MTHFR, I'm gonna die. No, it's COMT actually when it comes to this. Now MTHFR plays a role, but not as big as COMT, and I'll show you in a second. So this is an example of a person who has, it's on Dutch we show it as an activity, meaning what is your ability to get from here to here? So we have as a gauge, so this person is low activity, meaning they make a boatload of 2, it's in the red. Therefore, they should be making a boatload of methoxy to match it, and they're not. This is in the normal range. Get rid of that. Star to star. It is in the normal range, but it's not fast enough for this. So analogy is the water is coming in super fast. The drain is open. It's not open wide enough. You need to open it wider. So in this example, these are somebody's genomic results, and they have double positive. They're homozygous for their COMT. They have no issues with their MTHFR. That's not the, and these are their actual results. So they're just slow. They're just slow with their COMT. So in this research study, what they did is they gave COMT inhibitors, and what they found is that when you have low activity of the COMT, you have an increase, a very much increase of these depurinating adducts. So you can induce it. You can give COMT inhibitors, but just be aware it could initiate cancer. For those of you who have forgotten the methylation, the methionine cycle, this is where we're looking. So homocysteine, of course, at the bottom. It's funny, when I talk about this, when I explain this to practitioners and to patients, when I don't have this in front of me, I'll draw it out, and I always draw it out just like this, homocysteine at the bottom and methionine at the top. But sometimes practitioners, like we all have it in our head a certain way, right? So sometimes people are like, no, methionine over here, and homocysteine's over here. I'm like, no, turn it sideways. It's in my head. This is how I draw it in my head. So homocysteine comes around, goes through MTR, this is your B12, and MTHFR comes up here. So it is important, it helps the cycle go round. But it's not the critical key point. Keeps going to methionine, that makes MAT. MAT is what makes SAM, so SAMe, your SAMe supplements, very important cofactor. That makes your methyltransferases like COMT, and then it keeps going around again. Everything in here, magnesium, SAMe, folate, DMG, which is dimethylglycine or trimethylglycine zinc, these are all coenzymes to make this cycle go round and round. So when people go, what can I do to improve my COMT? Magnesium and SAMe are the two biggest cofactors, biggest by far. How many of your patients are magnesium deplete? Lots of them. All of them, right, not even lots, all. Let's just say what it is, all of them. But others support trimethylglycine, methionine, choline, methylated B vitamins, and zinc. Everything to get that cycle to go round and round is helpful. And if you test, if you're doing any kind of nutrient testing, you can test zinc, you can test your B vitamins, right? You can test these things and see where they're hung up. What slows down your COMT? Lots of things slow down your COMT. If you are homozygous plus, you have a slow COMT. If you're estrogen dominant or taking estrogen, that will slow down your COMT. It's a terrible system. I don't know who designed that. For women especially, if you've got elevated estrogen, we're going to slow down your clearance. That's backwards.
What about COMT plus minus?
That's different. But you can make a plus minus still slow. You can slow down a COMT. Even a normal functioning COMT. Even a fast COMT you can slow down. For sure. You can definitely impact it. I know people who drink lots of green tea, and if they drink too much, then they can feel it. They feel very estrogenish. Their PMS is worse, their periods are worse that month. Because they've induced a slow COMT.
Is it plus minus slightly slow?
No, that's the wild card. No, it's nope. But you can induce it to be slow.
Why?
Yeah, all these things.
Okay.
Yeah, you can. So if you have a plus minus, and you're taking estradiol, and you swallow your estradiol with green tea, and it's allergy season, and you take quercetin, you can induce a slow COMT.
And who doesn't have BPH?
And you're right, and you drink it out of your plastic water bottle. Right.
And you got the estrogen just received from Starbucks.
Oh, right. Exactly right. It's like the perfect storm. You can induce it. So just anything that affects the methionine cycle will slow it down. And they've got references for that. So why is phase 2 detox important? Why do we care about the drain to your clawfoot bathtub? Because you have reactive oxygen species and you need to get them out. You need to neutralize them. So phase 2 makes them water soluble. Methoxy is water soluble, right? So now you're a water soluble estrogen inside a cell. You're no longer a reactive oxygen species. You have been neutralized. You are methoxy. You are in the cell. So how do you evaluate phase 2.5 and 3? So we go from looking at liver for phase 1 and 2 into looking at gut health. So we'll go through this. What the heck is phase 2.5 detox? So, you are water soluble in a cell. But the cell has a membrane bilayer around it. That's not going to let you out because you are water soluble, right? So what do? How do you get out of the cell? This is where you enter the transporter. And if anyone has ever heard me lecture, I use the same analogy every single time. There is a trilogy movie called The Transporter. The actor is Jason Statham. And he basically is a hot guy in a hot car who drives things around, either like money or, people, or he tries to get stuff back. He transports. So this is the image that I have in my head, is that Jason Statham in his hot black car is driving estrogens across the cell membrane. That's what it does. It's formerly known as an ATP binding cassette. So you can look it up on PubMed and read all about these transporters. Why do you care about transporters? They literally transport everything. Literally everything. They're like the USPS and UPS and DHL rolled into one. They will get rid of drugs, medications, chemicals, toxins, hormones from in the cell to out of the cell in your whole body, your blood-brain barrier, everywhere. How do you slow down your transporter? Now this applies to everything, not just estrogen. So chemicals in your cell, other hormones in your cell, what have you in your cell, you're trying to get it out. Any and all inflammation. We talk a lot about inflammation, right, in functional medicine. Any and all inflammation will slow this down. Oxidative stress, overburden with toxicity, specialized specific medications, Z-Pak, clarithromycin, proton pump inhibitors. How many of your patients are on proton pump inhibitors? All of them, which is why they have no stomach acid and can't absorb getting the DIM from their indole-3-carbinol. And quercetin.
That's really weird.
I know, poor quercetin. It gets picked on a lot. It slows down COMT. It affects the transporter, but man, it's good for allergies. And it's funny, or not funny, but it's, when I've been lecturing about this, I've had more women come up to me and go, oh, I take quercetin in allergy season and my PMS is horrible. And I'm like, find something else. Don't take quercetin, take something else. And obviously a lot of people do quercetin just for allergy season, let's say. So some people are just on it maybe as needed for their stuffy nose. Some people are on it for like the month of May because of allergies. And again, right, length of time might matter, dose might matter. I don't know in the research what the dose is. People will ask me, is it 500 milligrams? Is it 100 milligrams? I don't know, but it does get researched that quercetin does these things. So just and then I have women that come tell me, especially when I lecture in allergy season, they're like, oh my gosh, my last 2 periods have been awful. Maybe it's quercetin. What supports your transporters though? Oh my gosh, you guys, there's so much you can do. Many we've talked about sulforaphane, curcumin, because that's always the answer on the multiple choice question, just pick it. Berberine, resveratrol, which we talked about, catechins in chocolate and green tea. So yay, chocolate, right? Support your transporters. DIM, not quercetin. Anything for cell membrane support. You're trying to get a water-soluble molecule in a transporter across a lipid bilayer. So choline and healthy fats and oils, right? You want to support bile and you want to support your cell membranes. That's what you're going for. Fluid cell membranes. You want it fluid and flexible so your little, like, sexy black car can drive across without issue. Okay. Now you're in the gut. You've been driven across the cell membrane. Now you're in the gut and you need to get excreted. So it's this thing called the estrobolome. The estrobolome is basically a part of your microbiome and its job is to metabolize estrogens in the gut. That's what it does. And it's highly influenced, just like the rest of your microbiome, by drugs, antibiotics, diet. Anything that can affect that will affect your estrobolome. The estrobolome is probably my favorite word in science right now. And I lectured in Guadalajara in Mexico earlier this year at a functional medicine conference, and they informed me that in Spanish it's estroboloma. So I think that's even better. So even they know about it. Here's how they figured it out. And this study sounds crazy to me. They took real-life women and injected them with radio-labeled estradiol, estrone, and estriol, and then they caught their stool, thinking that when they would just like 100% in, 100% out. And what they found was, oops, 10 to 15% all came out. Where did the rest go? Like we're missing 85 to 90%. And what they realized was this enzyme, beta-glucuronidase, is what the problem was. This is what was causing the estrogen to get reabsorbed. So is beta-glucuronidase all bad? I get asked this a lot. Can I make it 0? No, don't make it 0. You need it to break down large carbohydrates. You need it to absorb your flavonoids. That's important. And you need it to assist with your bilirubin reabsorption. So it is important. It's, again, Goldilocks. It's never 0. However, when it's high, it's a problem. Here's what, this is my analogy, right here. When you are driven across the cell, you are packaged. You're in a box with a bow on you, you're put in the black car, you're driven across, and then you're pushed off into the colon. Beta-glucuronidase can untie the bow, open the lid, and let estrogen reabsorb. It's a box opener. It's a bow untier. That's what it does. Basically, the fancy word for is it deconjugates the estrogen. It reverses the glucuronidation. It deconjugates it.
So I got a question. This is interesting. I have a
Yeah.
patient who is, I forgot what she's, plus or plus minus, single MT.
Okay.
She's also MTG4, I forgot what are both variants. And she got really high beta glucuronidase.
She's a
And she's
mess.
extremely sensitive to any kind of estrogen. Yeah, she's menopausal.
Oh, poor thing.
So it's like, it's like, it's a real challenge.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And you, well, not you, and I will get you all the slides so you can look back and know what to do.
No, it really makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So any estrogen she takes, like she can't get it through the drain and she can't get it out.
Yeah.
She can't get it out of the transporter and then she can't get it out of the stool either.
Exactly.
Even on a baby dose, it's going to affect her. Oh, for sure. Yeah. Which is why doing Dutch testing is so nice. You can find some, and stool testing, you can find this out. Okay. Beta-glucuronidase. So here's the thing about beta-glucuronidase. So they have tied it, if you have high levels, and therefore accelerated estrogen reabsorption, it increases the risk for really bad things: obesity, metabolic syndrome, cancer, endometrial hyperplasia, endometriosis, PCOS, infertility, cardiovascular disease, and cognitive function issues. Like, that's a lot of things just because your gut microbiome, your estrobolome, is out of balance. The goal, now this applies to men as well, but the picture shows women. You make estrogen from your granulosa cells. You circulate it and use it in your body. You go through phase 1 and 2. You go through phase 3, and the majority should be excreted. But what happens in a lot of people's unhealthy microbiome is they make it, use it, detox it, and then it gets reabsorbed back into the body. That's the problem. So let's avoid that. So how do you create a healthy estrobolome? Well, first of all, you test, right? A lot of people are testing for beta-glucuronidase, but you're testing for other things. The microbiome at large. You're looking for inflammation. You're looking at the good and the bad bacteria. You're looking for all of those things: parasites, worms, what have you. All of those will disrupt your microbiome. Number 1, you're going to focus on diet. Did you know any large alterations in diet will shift your microbiome in 24 hours? What did you eat 24 hours ago? That affected your microbiome right now. And if you ate really super healthy 24 hours ago, your microbiome, let's hope, is healthy now. But if 24 hours ago you were like, oh no, that wasn't too good, that was taco night with a few drinks, like, your microbiome has been shifted. Now, the really good thing is, it'll shift back. It can shift at 24 hours, so have hope. What increases? Obviously, low consumption of fiber, fruits and vegetables, and high consumption of the standard American diet. And what's funny is I lecture all over the world, and I was somewhere, I think I was in Australia, lecturing, and I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm like, what do you guys call it? We call it the standard American diet. Literally the whole room goes, the standard American diet. Oh, that's awkward. Okay. Now I try to remember to say standard Western diet, so it doesn't just blame America. Okay, reduce antibiotic and toxicant exposure. I feel like this is a no-brainer. I just have it in here as a reminder. So antibiotics are great when you need them. I'm not saying don't use antibiotics. 100%. If you need an antibiotic, use it. But it's the mass dissemination of antibiotics for everything, including viral, that is going to affect your microbiome. But ask your patient, do you have a long history of antibiotic use? It's probably affected your microbiome. Toxicants, I just listed several. Like, if you PubMed this, it's like ridiculous the amount that comes up. And the more that comes up about environmental toxicants and the microbiome, I just can't keep up. So and you guys know this. Alcohol. So moderate alcohol consumption is associated with small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, study finds. Anything that will shift your bile and affect your gallbladder and subsequently your large colon will affect your estrobolome. So those of you who are treating SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, you are, of course, downstream helping the estrobolome. But alcohol might be a big trigger for people. And we know that alcohol goes through the same detoxification pathways as estrogen, and alcohol wins. It will push estrogen back, and estrogen will recirculate. But here's the thing, you guys. Don't negotiate your alcohol choices with me. I will do this lecture and people will go, but Carrie, I only drink tequila, and that doesn't affect my blood sugar. It's still affects your detox. Or the other one I get all the time is, I only drink small batch biodynamic wine. That's organic and sulfite free, and I'm like, it still affects your detox, it's still alcohol. And you guys, I drink, I absolutely have the occasional glass of wine, but I'm doing all the stuff to try to mitigate it. I'm taking glutathione with it, right? I'm taking my antioxidants with it. I'm doing the stuff to help for the fact that I'm celebrating or whatever I'm doing with a glass of wine. And I'm very careful when I drink. I don't drink all the time. I don't even drink every week. But you've got patients who do, right? You've got patients that come in and they're like, I have 2 glasses of wine every night with dinner, and they can't figure out why they can't lose weight, can't sleep, and their estrogen's a mess. Probably a detox issue. In this study, they found in a subgroup of alcoholics, they had high levels of serum endotoxin, so metabolic endotoxemia, from LPS, right, like lipopolysaccharide, from your gram-negative bacteria in your gut. And what happens, they had a dysfunction in their microbiome, and the alteration in their microbiome, in their LPS, their endotoxin, was seen after an extended period of sobriety. So they can permanently or semi-permanently change the microbiome, and it can't change back. So you have a lot of work to do with alcoholics, especially. Prebiotics and resistant starch. Prebiotics are great, right? Foods, artichoke, dandelion greens, jicama, chicory root. I was at the same conference in Mexico, and on the breaks, we were given huge platters, veggie platters, and they had jicama on the platter. And nobody knew what jicama was. It's not a thing, at least in Guadalajara. So everything, the celery was gone, the peppers were gone, the carrots were gone, and there was all the jicama. And my girlfriend, who was down there with me while lecturing, we had all the jicama, and then it was my turn to lecture, and I was explaining this, and the hotel was like literally out of jicama. Like the catering people were like, in Spanish, they're like, what did you tell them? That makes them eat all the jicama. I'm like, it's good for estrogen detox. Really good for estrogen, it's good for the microbiome. So eat your jicama. Partially hydrolyzed guar gum, which is a big one. A lot of supplement companies giving that out or selling that, and then of course pectin, which is a great one. Pectin's just good for so many things. It's such a good binder. Citations. And then probiotics. Probiotics. In this study, they did probiotics and fermented foods and affecting the microbiome. Now, I don't have unfortunately enough time, but obviously probiotics is a huge topic, and which probiotic you use and how it manipulates the microbiome and what have you. So definitely do your research into probiotics, but just know that, of course, they affect your microbiome, and that's what we're going for that estrogen. And lastly, we have the supplement calcium D-glucarate, CDG. How many of you use calcium D-glucarate in your practice? What is calcium D-glucarate? It's a beta-glucuronidase inhibitor. It keeps the bow tied and the lid on the box so that estrogen can be excreted. Please don't confuse it with calcium. It's not calcium. It's not glutamine, and it's not saccharin, which is funny. In this one study, it was like commonly confused with saccharin. I was like, really? Who confuses that? But here's the thing about calcium D-glucarate. It doesn't lower your beta-glucuronidase levels. You still have to address the estrogen. You can't just give calcium D-glucarate and hope for the best. It'll be very helpful. It won't address the cause. You gotta address the cause. Research shows it's 1,500 to 3,000 milligrams a day at a minimum. When they do rat studies, they give exponential amounts of calcium D-glucarate. The problem is it's a very expensive product. So a lot of companies will just put in about 500 milligrams, and what we're seeing is it's still effective. So instead of maybe getting 100% outcome, maybe the 500 milligrams gives you 25%. It's still effective for men and women, but usually you're giving other things. You're changing their diet, you're affecting their microbiome, you're having them cut back on alcohol, you're working on phase 1 and phase 2, you're doing, adding more jicama, what have you. You're doing other things, and collectively is what helps the most. There are foods high in calcium D-glucarate. Oranges, carrots, apples, grapefruit, and cruciferous veggies. So, right, go for your cruciferous veggies. But not anywhere near therapeutic doses. But obviously, as you're working on diet and lifestyle changes, you'll tell them to eat these things. Okay, so let's summarize, and then I can take questions for sure. Number 1, you learned it as phase 1, 2, 3. You're going to address it as 3, 2, 1. If any of you call me and go, I gave my person DIM and she felt better initially and now she feels worse, I'm going to ask you if you opened up the drain and if you opened up the sewer line. Because if you just give DIM, you're just going to increase the 2, and the 2-OH are still reactive oxygen species. The creation of unstable depurinating addicts is the problem. They're the children who run wild and leave holes in your DNA. We don't want that. And if you don't test estrogen metabolism through Dutch for phase 1 and 2, and through GI testing who looks at beta-glucuronidase levels, then how will you know where the problem lies? Now, absolutely, like I said, you treat it as 3, 2, 1. So and if you know their gut's a mess, just go ahead and treat the gut. Just go for it. And if you know the whole world is magnesium depleted, give them magnesium. Tell them to take Epsom salt baths. Totally fine. These are the genes, so those of you who are into testing, looking at their COMT, their quinol reductase, which is NQO1, and their glutathione sulfotransferase gene. And that'll help you decide, do they need extra sulforaphane? Should I give them NAC? Should I put them on resveratrol? What should I do? Don't forget about your transporters. Obviously, that means eat dark chocolate, obviously. Just be careful of quercetin. Unhealthy bile and unbalanced microbiome will raise your hormone levels. You will reabsorb because you will untie the bow and you will open up the box. You want to do stool and or SIBO testing depending on their symptoms for further evaluation. We say this all the time in functional medicine, you are what you eat, but predominantly you are what you absorb, and then you are what your microbiome does with you. So you want to eat for your liver and eat for your microbiome. And if you have to drink wine, try to get organic, not sprayed, biodynamic, Cabernet Franc. Because at least then you'll get your resveratrol. Still take your NAC though. And that's it. That concludes our talk. I hope you all feel like estrogen experts. Yes.
Okay, so I have a patient that brought me a Dutch test about a year ago, and I said, no way. It's so unusual, friend, that I'll never understand it. And I've been doing urine tests for a long time.
Yeah.
But now I have 2 patients, one of which is the one I was talking about, really says,
yeah.
and she wants to get it done in the next few weeks, and another patient brought it in about a week ago and said, I'm going to see this person's lecture, then I'll come back.
Yeah.
So I was like, I have to learn how to do this.
Yeah.
Is it any more user-friendly? I mean, because I just did it before and I was overwhelmed.
Oh yeah, we also have 9 doctors on staff. You can call and make a free phone consult. We'll walk you through it.
Okay.
Yeah, or whoever, you could have, if there's somebody in your office that wants to learn to go through it and relate to you, we can do that, no problem. We all can answer questions over email. We're pretty staffed up to help that, yes.
Contact you?
You, for sure, yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm here for. Yeah, I have a team of 8 that works with me, so.
Thanks.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
For people who are using transdermal progesterone, is it appropriate to use the Dutch test?
Yes for everything else, but you can't monitor transdermal progesterone in the Dutch test.
So everything else would be valid, but just
Correct.
progesterone numbers wouldn't be?
Correct. It's not that they're not valid, it just may not show what you're looking for. Like, it'll still show the progesterone, but it's not going to show, it probably won't be accurate to what's actually going around in circulation and in the tissues. Yeah, but everything else, the estrogen detox, the cortisol, the melatonin, the organic acids, the androgens, absolutely. Yeah, but progesterone as a hormone is a tough hormone. It's the most lipophilic of your hormones, and so when you rub it on, it stays in the fat tissue and it doesn't leak out at nice, healthy, disseminated levels. And it's in and out of serum very quickly, and in saliva, it tends to shoot up exponentially. Does a high saliva result mean all your tissues look like that? No. It's just the dynamics of progesterone itself.
What about putting it on gums? I've heard a lot of people doing that.
Yeah, sublingual progesterone. Yeah.
Would that also make the test not?
No, that is different. It's just the transdermal that makes it tough.
Okay.
Yeah, and just because of the nature of transdermal, progesterone is a hormone. Yeah. It's very different from testosterone. It's very different from estrogen in rate of absorption, how it hangs in the fat tissue, stuff like that.
So putting it on the gums versus taking it orally, like in a capsule, is what would be the difference?
So if you take it as a capsule, you obviously swallow it, so you're going to lose a whole lot to first pass effect.
Yeah.
So if you give like prometrium, which is the prescription progesterone, so in the prometrium which is bioidentical progesterone. In the actual package insert, it says only 10 to 20% of it is absorbed. So in a 100 milligram dose, you're only going to get about 10 to 20 milligrams. Sublingual is different. You put it up on your gums. Now, some of it goes right into the gum, and you get it sublingually. But some people don't have the patience, and they end up swallowing it. After a while, it mixes with their saliva. So now it's split. They'll get some into circulation right away, and some they'll end up swallowing, depending how big or small the little dissolvable thing is. And so now it's a combination oral sublingual, because nobody puts it in their gum and doesn't swallow
What
it.
I found out with the oral is that for sleep, it's fabulous.
Because so
GABA receptor.
the GABA receptors.
So fast, so much,
Yeah, so oral progesterone, the sublingual progesterone part you end up swallowing because you get tired of dissolving it, and oral pregnenolone all convert into aloe, A-L-L-O, not aloe the plant, but allopregnanolone. Aloe crosses the blood-brain barrier and binds to GABA-A receptors.
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, so oral progesterone, sublingual progesterone, but usually the part you end up swallowing, and oral pregnenolone. When they go through the liver through first pass, they all turn into the same thing. Aloe, A-L-L-O. Aloe crosses the blood-brain barrier and binds to GABA receptors. So it's calming, relaxing, right? GABA is your biggest inhibitory neurotransmitter in your brain. So it's extremely calming. And we see this the most, obviously, in women who don't ovulate, because they're losing progesterone, but in age ranges, I see it the most in the perimenopausal women. So those perimenopausal women who are used to having progesterone, and then they don't ovulate very regularly, and now they're like, what the heck, I turned 45 and I can't sleep, and my anxiety is higher than it used to be. It's because they're missing out on that progesterone that then turns into aloe, that then binds to GABA. So they have more anxiety, they can't sleep, and it's all because of progesterone. Yep. Which is why it works so well. Now the topical, the cream, it still has calming effects, it's just not to the same level at all, not to the same degree. Still helps other things, hot flushes, women use night sweats, fertility, but like calming, relaxing, the oral is your best bet, for sure. Wait, in the back.
I have a patient who just saw today who just had a surgery because he had cysts or masses removed in his breast, not cancerous. And I was thinking, there's something wrong here.
Yeah.
Dutch test would be a perfect fit to figure out.
Yeah, because we can see, you said it's a he, right?
It's a he.
So you can see, especially in men, because they make so much testosterone, we can really see aromatization, and then we can see detoxification. Now we only see phase 1 and 2. He may have to do stool testing, or judge it off symptoms if he's got a lot of GI stuff.
Yeah, he eats well, he's in impeccable shape, but something's off here that he's
For sure.
that they haven't removed, but it's strange.
Yeah. You can absolutely. Did you have a question, Ben?
Yeah, about topical estrogen and how it seems to be a problem no matter how you test for it. And then, like you said, the saliva testing is a better way to.
Topical estrogen's not a problem with Dutch. You can absolutely test it. It's just topical progesterone. And topical progesterone as a whole is a tough one to test because of the hormone itself.
But like relative compared to, say, saliva versus Dutch.
Oh, yeah, so in saliva, topical estrogen tends to shoot way up because of the nature of the salivary gland, so they adjust the ranges. But with Dutch, it shows up just like it would in the serum. It's pretty on par. For Dutch and serum are pretty on par for topical estrogen.
With saliva, you can just crazy values, right?
Yes, yeah.
Crazy.
They'll adjust the ranges, yeah. And of course, if you do a sublingual hormone, they will, and then you do a saliva swab. That makes sense because you're putting it here and then you're spitting it back out. So you have to be very careful with that. But they will shift. Saliva companies will shift their ranges for that. Yeah, but topical estrogen you can absolutely do Dutch. It matches up with serum. Yeah, we're actually hoping to get that published next. Yeah. Yes.
This is kind of tangential to the point of the talk, and you may not even have an answer for it, but I'll ask you. You can see if you have an answer.
And we also have a room full of practitioners who might be able to answer it too.
Okay. What are some typical doses for sublingual progesterone?
Typical doses for sublingual? So you can do any dose you want. You can start as low as 10, and you can go, I don't go this high, but I've seen people go up to 60 or 70, 80 milligrams of sublingual.
What's more typical?
What do you guys think is typical for sublingual? Yeah, I was going to say, somewhere between 20 and 40 is my standard for sublingual. Okay. Yeah, if I'm going to do sublingual. Now, my thing with sublingual is that because, depending on your compounding pharmacy, you can double the dose and then they cut the sublingual in half to make it smaller. So like if you want to give them 20 milligrams, you tell them 40 milligrams in the whatever they call their sublingual thing, and then some of them have like other like dots or they like.
I think
New
what
technology.
I'm referring to, I haven't seen it, but what I've heard about is it's like a liquid that you just sort of put in your nose.
Oh, that I don't know about. That I don't. The Troche I use all the time, but that I don't know about. Yeah. Yeah, that's a compounding pharmacy. Yeah. And then yes.
2 questions.
Yes.
Does the email to get this?
Say it again.
Does the email to get this live?
I'll send an event and he can get them out to everybody.
Second one, intervention. When you're doing, you get a client, I'm a nutritionist,
Okay.
so my scope is a little. When you do gym, all these kind of supplementations, much like many of my clients say, I'm going to be taking supplements for her. How long will be a good time for implementation of this?
So
How long do they want to be healthy?
Yeah, no, they heal, but
So here's the thing, and I said it earlier. That's a really good question. If you're going 3, 2, 1, then how you may, and let's say you do Dutch testing, insulin testing. You're like, this person's a hot mess. They need like his patients. They've got COMT, they've got high beta glucuronidase, everything's a mess. So you're going to address the gut first, no matter what. Can you give everything? Can you give magnesium and DIM and SAMI and all the things? Absolutely. Or you can just start with the gut, correct that, which will take time. And a lot of times what you'll see is because the inflammation goes down, and because they're digesting and assimilating, that you don't actually need the phase 2 and the phase 1 stuff anymore. Now you can use it in the short term as a Band-Aid, so I may use it for a month or 3 while I'm working on the gut if her cycles are severe, or periods are super heavy, or endo is bad. Or if it's cancer, then I'm like, look, you don't have a choice, you have to be on all this stuff. But if it's price is an issue and overwhelming is an issue, start with the gut. Always start with the gut and just do that. And don't worry about DIM. Be like, look, you need DIM, but we're not going to worry about that right now. Let's give it like 3 to 6 months. Let's focus on, gut and everything else, diet, lifestyle, sleep, what have you. And then we'll come back to it. And if your symptoms are like all perfect, don't give DIM. If they're like, my cycles are normal, and I don't have PMS, my breasts don't hurt anymore, and I'm not moody, and my bleeding's normal, my endometriosis is so much better, don't give DIM. Don't have to spend the money. You can always do tests too and see.
And just be aware of the genetics.
Correct. Correct. Which you'll know on the first test, so you can always point to her and say, if when you hit menopause you decide to go on estrogen, you have to be aware of this. You seem to have an upregulated whatever, or you have a downregulated COMT. You need to be aware of this when you go into menopause if you do anything. Yeah. Or if she suddenly opens up a green tea company and starts drinking it like crazy and her estrogen comes back, you'll be like, you're messing up your COMT, stop. Or she's taking tons of quercetin at allergy season, you'll be like, stop doing that, let's do something else.
What does
Try
quercetin do?
Slows down your transporters and slows down your COMT. Yeah.
Can you get copies of your slides?
Yeah, I'm gonna send them to him so he can get them out to everybody who's here, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I know I put a lot of info, I should have said this at the beginning, I put a lot of info on my slides, but when I lecture, I hate when lecturers put 4 words on a slide, right? I want the resource. I want you guys to be able to take this back tomorrow, or when you send it out, Monday, and be able to be like, okay, what did she say? Where was that? And you just have to go to the slide and it's right there, versus having to remember, or only seeing 4 words, right? Quercetin is bad, and you're like, why? Why is quercetin bad? I want you to be able to pick and choose. I'm going to use an allergy season, but not if she has COMT, and not if she's a transport, not if she's super severe endometriosis. We'll find something else for her allergies. And all the data is there on the slide, with the references. Yes. Remind me to get you slides. Yeah. It may not be, I'll try.
What are some of the benefits to the cycle map? What are some of the conditions?
Benefits to cycle mapping. I wish I had a picture. Cycle mapping is, some of you who maybe have used saliva testing where they do it all month long and graph it out. It's the same in urine. It's just maybe an easier collection. They just urinate on a strip of paper all month long. So if you have a woman who's struggling to get pregnant, who has symptoms off and on through her cycle that you can't pinpoint, maybe migraines, migraines at ovulation, but the one big test that you do, a day 19, isn't gonna pick up a day 14 migraine, and a day 27 migraine, right? So you want the all month long for that big picture. For the female who's having all these symptoms that you can't quite pin down, that's when you use it. It's my favorite test for the cycling woman. And the reason I say that is, I so many times when women are like, I've gotten my blood drawn, I was told I was normal, I don't feel normal. And when we look at the one day, it's like the one day, because hormones do this, but they can really go up and down in the luteal phase, especially with estrogen or liver issues. And I'm like, yep, there it is. Like on the one day you tested, you did look normal, and then you went up, or your progesterone went down. Or yes, on day 20, your progesterone was normal, and on day 22, it tanked. That's why you have miscarriages. Or that's why your PMS is so bad. And so when you just do one day, it's literally that one day. Like Thursday of the month, that was day 20, looked great. I can't tell you about day 19, and I can't tell you about day 21, but day 20 looked great. And so for some women, they need that like macroscopic view. So you guys as practitioners could be like, oh, there it is. That's why you get migraines. You dip here, and then you dip here. That's a problem. Oh, that's why you have repeat miscarriage. Your progesterone just totally tanks, and we miss it. So that's why I like cycle mapping.
And what are some of the benefits to looking at testosterone metabolites?
Oh, testosterone metabolites. So this is so testosterone, DHEA, becomes other metabolites, and they either go down a 5-alpha pathway or a 5-beta pathway. You guys are probably most familiar with like 5-alpha DHT. There are other metabolites on that pathway. So if you are a 5-alpha person, you have been upregulated in 5-alpha reductase, then you are more prone to the acne here on the jawline. You're more prone to the hair growth in places women we don't want. You're more prone to male pattern baldness, male or female. You're more prone to like moodiness on the angry, irritated, I have no patience side. And men are more prone to like the prostate enlargement issues. And it's a nice test because in serum or saliva, the testosterone might be normal, but she has bad cystic acne, hair growth, she's looking PCOS, and you're like, well, that's weird because her androgens are normal in serum, and then you look in urine, and she's just a 5-alpha person. So when you peel the onion down to the next layer, you're like, oh, there it is. That's why she has all these symptoms. And you guys can do stuff to shift it. 5-alpha reductase is upregulated through inflammation. It's upregulated with insulin. It's upregulated with obesity. But it's downregulated with things like reishi mushroom, with saw palmetto, with EGCG from green tea, with stinging nettle root, with Pygeum africana. These are all like stuff, like tip supplements you can get easily. So you can be working on their insulin, their weight, and their inflammation, and help clear up their acne, slow down their hair loss, improve their mood with all these things.
A lot of those are typical of prostate formulas.
Oh my gosh. We talk about this on the podcast? That's the big warning, ladies, and well, men and women. If you give a woman the supplement and it says prostate support on it, let her know that you were educated, you know she doesn't have a prostate. You just need the stuff inside. You need the saw palmetto and the stinging nettle and the Pygeum and the reishi mushroom inside to slow her symptoms. Also remember that hair follicles are on about a 3-month cycle. So if she's having a lot of hair loss and you give her a supplement, she calls you back like 24 hours later to tell you it didn't work, she needs to give it about 3 months. The follicles work on about a 3-month cycle. So, and it depends what happened 3 months ago as well. So really high stress, was she really ill, things like that. Obviously there's typical hair loss things, low iron, hypothyroidism, but the 5-alpha reductase could be a big one.
And maybe you could talk about the cortisol test and the difference between the Dutch version, because one of the issues that we've had using the cortisol, salivary cortisol test is it seems, especially in women, they have trouble filling up those little tubes.
Yes.
And the worst part is, now that we're doing the cortisol awakening response,
right.
That first sample they have to do supposedly
within 5 minutes.
Exactly.
Of waking.
And they haven't eaten, they haven't drunk, and now they got to fill up this tube,
right.
And they probably get so stressed out trying.
That their cortisol goes up even more, yeah. Which is definitely the nice convenience of the Dutch test is that it's dry urine, so you can urinate on the strip, Or you can urinate into a clean cup, doesn't have to be sterile, just clean, and you can dip the strip in it. And when we have a salivary portion as well for the cortisol awakening response, but we use cotton swabs. So you just open the vial, stick the cotton swab in your mouth, get it wet, pull it back out, stick it in the tube.
Oh, that's nice.
So collection is much easier, much faster. Now we don't pull hormones off the cotton swab. This is why none of your salivary and hormone companies use cotton swabs anymore, because hormones, progesterone especially, gets screwed up in the cotton swab. So that's why I know some of you were like, well, why don't the big saliva companies use cotton swabs? They can't, because they pull all their hormones out of saliva. We are just pulling free cortisol and cortisone. We pull everything else out of urine. It's a combo test. But because, just like Dr. Ben said, you have to collect within 5 minutes of waking, and you're trying to spit as fast as you can when you first wake up, it's really tough. So that's why we did cotton swabs, because we're not pulling progesterone off of it.
And then the full Dutch panel has more than just hormones. What are some of the other things in the full Dutch?
In the full Dutch panel, we do melatonin. We do the DNA damage marker, HOHDG. We do methylmalonic acid, or methylmalonate, so B12. We do 2 B6 markers, kynurenate and not quin. We do kynurenate and, oh my gosh. What's the other one we gotta do? What's our B6 marker?
Fig?
No, we don't do fig glue, that's not quin. Oh my gosh, you guys, this is my test too. This is terrible. Boy, you guys are looking it up for me. I'll keep going. We do dopamine marker, so homovinylate, and we do vinyl mandylate, which is the same thing as homovinylic acid, vinyl mandelic acid, if you guys are doing organic acid testing. So dopamine metabolite, norepinephrine, epinephrine metabolite, and then, pyroglutamate. So pyroglutamic acid, glutathione. We do a glutathione marker. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, kynurenate. What was the other one? Xanthionate. Xanthionate. Sorry. XAN. Our B6 markers. But xanthionate, interestingly enough, will complex with iron and form reactive oxygen species, and it will complex with insulin and make people more hyperglycemic. So the higher your xanthionate, the more likely you are to develop type 2 diabetes and have iron issues. So we can pick that up on Dutch testing as well by looking at that one marker. But it is a strong B6 marker.
So based on all the complexity you gave to understanding the estrogen detoxification, is it no longer relevant at all to look at the 2:16 ratio?
No, research has pretty well debunked that, the 2:16 ratio. 2 is important, 16 is important, but the actual ratio between them, the research behind it is actually not as strong as people would have thought. The reason is, you have to look at the 4. Because it's a cancer risk marker, but it's the 4 that's the problem. The 4 that's for the addicts. Yeah. So yeah. Thank you to everyone.
Thank you.